Greetings and felicitations.
Hip, hip, hurrah, tally-ho.
Hey, my little Georgia Peach.
Hey, Puddin'.
Okay, we just got finished watching Thunderball. Wow, what did you think about it?
I loved it.
I mean, this one
was one of the better ones.
Yeah, it was. I've always said this is one of my favorite James Bond movies for quite a few reasons. All right, let's talk about the theme song right off the bat. Beautiful imagery at the beginning of the film, and we're seeing that's a constant now. Theme music, we have a male singer this time. Knocked it out of the park, though. Tom Jones singing Thunderball.
I love the theme song.
Fantastic theme song.
I mean, this one was dramatic and energetic.
Mm-hmm. Now here's my story with Tom Jones and Thunderball. So I saw Tom Jones in Atlantic City in the late 90s, and it was a sight to behold because there's like women in their 60s throwing bras on the stage and stuff. It was just, it was a unique experience.
Back then.
Oh, yeah. He could draw a crowd. He absolutely can. And it was fun to see him in a casino type atmosphere. So, I've been to Las Vegas numerous times, and there's this theater it was at the Imperial Palace at the time. Now I don't know where it is, but it was called Legends in Concert, and they would have roughly 15 minutes of all different celebrity impersonators, whether it be Prince, Madonna, Tom Jones, Elvis.
I wanted to go to that show, and it was canceled the time that I went. Okay.
Well, here's the story. I went to it one time in Las Vegas, and afterwards you get to meet them afterwards. So I met the Tom Jones guy, and I took a picture with him. This is before the era of selfies, right? But I got a picture with him, and I said, hey, next time I come to Vegas fairly often, I want to hear you sing Thunderball. He goes, I'll do it, man, just for you. Right?
Okay.
A couple years later, went back, saw the same show, because they change up the legends all the time. Got to see him afterwards. I said, hey, I came a couple years ago. You told me you're going to play Thunderball. He just laughed. He goes, maybe next time, right? Fast forward. This is probably 2016. I was a waiter at Jeff Ruby's Steakhouse in Nashville, and they had this big party, a private party, where they brought in Tom Jones impersonator from Las Vegas. And I'm thinking to myself, how many are there? I look at the guy, and guess what? It's the same guy. This guy has been doing this
for years.
I could tell. I had the picture of him. So I met him afterwards. I said, you don't remember me, but I got a picture with you. And he showed me, he goes, oh, that was a while ago though. I said, yeah, it was a while ago. Good 15 to over 20 years at this point. I said, you know what? I asked you about playing Thunderball, and you never sang it. He goes, you're the one. He goes, I know who you are. Because no one ever goes up to me and asks me to play Thunderball. They just want to hear the greatest hits. What's New Pussycat?
Oh, yeah.
He goes, I'm going to tell you why I don't play Thunderball. He goes, Tom Jones doesn't play Thunderball. And I said, you're right. I saw Tom Jones. He doesn't play Thunderball.
You mean he doesn't sing it? Or?
He doesn't sing it. He said, because in real life, the notes are so exhausting. When you hear him hit the crescendo at the end and sing Thunderball, to carry that note for that long with that much power, Tom actually passed out in the studio.
Ooh.
And that's why he can't do it like it's done on the record. So Tom says if he can't do it, he's not going to do it. And he goes, and that's why I don't do it, because it's virtually impossible to recreate.
Yeah, it seems like he could just do it and not do that part, but okay.
Isn't
I
that wild,
guess people
I mean, a lot of acts now,
it.
you see these bands that have been around 40, 50 years, they know their limits, or actually they tone down a little bit, but he figures if Tom doesn't do it, I don't do it. And it's not considered one of, like, the top 5 songs that the average person knows. We're nerds. We know what that is, but that's the story with Thunderball, because it is an epic, powerful song.
It is. So you just have to listen to recordings of it.
That's it. We got to do the numbers and the facts before we go into the film details. All right, directed by Terrence Young, based on the Ian Fleming novel Thunderball, starring Sean Connery as James Bond, Claudine Auger, Adolfo Celi, music by John Barry, which we love, Eon Productions. The release date was interesting. Get this. It premiered in Tokyo first, December 9th, 1965, and then in the United States on December 21st, and then December 29th in the United Kingdom. Curious,
so they did
huh?
it that way.
Now, by this time, Bond mania was huge in Tokyo. The Japanese loved James Bond. They nicknamed him Mr. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. And then they started making a song that debuted in this movie, Mr. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
That is neat, yes. So they made the song, and the filmmakers actually picked up on it.
Yes.
I mean, of course they would. They know who their audience is.
But I think this is where we're seeing the truly international scope of Bond mania.
Yes. So I mean, that's great. So the whole world left him. This is not the world yet, but I mean, but it's pretty cool.
Budget was $9 million. The box office took in $141 million. Huge.
That is huge. That is like, so yeah, this was a big hit.
Absolutely. Now, I like the premise of it. This is a Bond movie that actually made sense because Bond had a mission. He had to find 2 NATO bombs that were stolen by Spectre, and they were holding it up for ransom in exchange for not destroying major cities in the United States and the United Kingdom. So I'm like, okay, Bond has a mission that we can follow continuously. And it was interesting to watch all that Spectre did to steal these bombs and all they had to do to cover up the theft of such bombs.
They showed all of those scenes, stealing and then being underwater.
Very much underwater. It was
a lot of water.
I think this was,
this.
they said, the earliest movie or one of the earlier movies that had so much underwater photography, and we're talking people photography, not submarines, not fake octopuses, but actual real people underwater, that there was a lot to it. And it was really, we have a big screen TV, and it was really beautiful. I'd say this is one of the prettiest Bond movies that we've seen.
The whole way it was choreographed, the people going, knowing which way to go, and the lighting, they knew how to do it so that it wasn't too dark, and they had the brightness in the right places.
That's a great point. Absolutely. Right off the bat, we see a piece of Bond technology that at the time was amazing, that being the jetpack. Apparently, there are only 2 people in the world that were qualified to fly that. Sean Connery is not one of them, so the engineer, Bill Suter, was the one that flew it in the movie. Now, my dad saw this when it came out, and he said, right off the bat, every kid in the audience was amazed to see a rocket jetpack.
Yeah, it's like, oh, cool.
It was. By the time we saw it, by our age, when we were rewatching movies, my brother and I were saying that was a big deal back then.
That's pretty common now, yeah.
It's pretty common, back in the 80s. But at that time, in the 60s, it was new technology.
That rocket suit was actually introduced at the World's Fair in the 60s.
Oh,
interesting. Before this movie. So that's where they got it from. I mean, that's
wow.
pretty neat. It was like, it really was new at the time.
And apparently that this is the only Bond movie where we get to see all of the 00 agents in one shot, which I thought was kind of cool.
Having them all sit behind the tables
Yes.
and having the number 1 in the back. And
Yes. And I like that because it shows that, okay, he's one of many. He's a number.
Yes.
That they're agents all over the place. Which I wish they would do something with that idea.
If they had done something else with it later.
Even, like, what if you made a 006 TV series? What if you made another movies that extended 009
the 00s,
movies?
yes.
Yeah, I mean, you could do, I'd like to see the different personalities of the different 00s.
I think they've had a few in the movies, but not really major.
Which is a shame they don't do more with that concept. Make a comic book series, 002.
They could.
There's so much you can do when you have multiple agents like that.
It would be neat to see them working together more.
Oh, working together would be great too. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Bond. There were the other, spy women. There were other cohorts that were spies.
And we see Felix Leiter,
but not exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. And the thing about Leiter in this movie, he seemed like he was working for Bond. James just kept telling him what to do. Right? He didn't seem like a partner.
Here we go again with another Felix Leiter.
Right.
I mean, how many?
Yeah.
They just keep changing. They change the actor's look of Felix Leiter so drastically. I mean, what's the deal with this? It's almost confusing to a point.
This must be one that they haven't figured him out, and they also don't think he's as important either.
What'd you think about the villain?
The villain was nice. He wasn't as cartoonish in this one.
Mm-hmm. More realistic, I think.
Yes.
Like a mob boss.
Yes, he was more like someone who could really exist.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just evil enough. So I mean, he was a good villain. And for Domino, the woman,
I liked her.
They did. She was good. But you know her voice was dubbed just like a lot of the
I think
actors.
This one they did a better job of dubbing.
They did. It looked better, but it was still, I don't know why. It just seems strange to me that they keep doing that in these movies.
Because her voice, I think, was too French, they felt, right?
Yes.
Which, I kind of like that exoticness. Okay, we can't understand every word, or we got to listen a little bit closer, but it's an odd thing when they do that. They hire actresses for some things, but not for others. I don't get it.
Obviously, just for the looks. I mean, if it's someone who can act as much as they need and just has a certain look, and then so they don't care what she sounds like, they'll just spend the extra money to have someone else do her voice.
I guess so. I'd be curious to hear what the original non-dubbed lines are.
Yeah, that would be neat to see that.
Now, the term Thunderball is a military term that's used by U.S. soldiers that describes the cloud that you see, that giant atomic cloud, that like mushroom cloud.
Yes.
So that is the result of cities, what you'd see over cities if Spectre had blown up the cities. You'd see the Thunderball.
So the
Because I was
Thunderball
wondering
is a
what
cloud.
in the world does this Thunderball mean?
It means that cloud
It's the
that would have
cloud,
happened.
yes.
Okay.
So they never really explained it like that. Yet it's one of those things that if you're a Bond nerd, you have to research it and find it out.
They just said this is Project Thunderball,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you liked the line where she was in the bathtub and she said, "Hand me something to put on." And he
that's
gave
something.
her slippers.
And what do we do that night? Because we take showers at nighttime. What do we do at nighttime when you asked me for the towel? I said, "Hold on, let me get your slippers." That was great.
I know they took that and used it again on the TV series Hunter when McCall, the lady, was in her bathtub and Hunter walked in and she said, "Hand me something to put on," and he just picked up a wash rag.
Now that yacht, that 2-section yacht, remember my brother had the toy of. He had the Gilbert toy, so they did make a limited amount of toys for this. I remember playing
Back
with
in
it,
the 60s,
splitting it
the
apart.
toys that came out in the 60s?
Yes, yep. Which is a shame. I mean, there's so much you could do to merchandise James Bond toys if they just thought
all the gadgets.
Yeah, exactly. If they were just a little bit more assertive with producing this stuff. So I do remember playing with that Disco Volante yacht. And you talk about Domino. Did you notice all her clothes are always black and white?
Yes.
Like, how cool is that?
Yeah, because of the name Domino.
The name Domino. Yeah, just little things, little visual clues. That's why I say this is one of the prettiest James Bond movies. The title sequence apparently was filmed in black and white, but then they added color afterwards, so it gave it more of a surreal feel to it. We were both impressed with the underwater scenes. Apparently there was supposed to be a plexiglass to block James Bond or Sean Connery from the sharks, but it wasn't complete.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like he was completely locked in.
Oh, so there was some real danger in it?
Isn't that wild?
Well, and the cameraman, too. That's another thing you have to worry about. The camera guy is like, he probably doesn't want to be in that danger.
Mm-hmm.
But this movie won an Academy Award for visual effects, so we can see why. Probably because of those underwater scenes.
I didn't realize that. Yeah, that's... Boy, it was gorgeous.
That giant turtle underwater,
Mm-hmm.
do you remember that? That was a nice visual effect. Yeah, it's better to have that than have a shark. But they did have the other little things underwater. And this movie was redone in 1983 as Never Say Never Again.
Yes. Boy, wait till we get to the Never Say Never Again review. I mean, I distinctly remember reading that Starlog magazine.
Yes.
I remember looking at that cover. I remember I remember exactly the moment at the Amity newsstand, staring at it and saying, "This makes no sense." Yeah, that's very bizarre to make a remake of your own movie. Not a different James Bond actor either. The same actor.
Well, they brought him who hadn't been playing Bond in a while. This was already when Roger Moore was playing Bond.
It was so weird. Yep. At the same year that another official James Bond movie is being played.
Yes.
I could see it doing it during one of the lean years, in between years. Why would you do it the same year?
That was just a weird move. It was like, what?
It was. But if you're going to remake a film of the classic Bond ones, I think this is one that is timeless. The theme is timeless. You can take this idea of, because there's some of the older Bond movies, I don't think it would make sense to modern audiences of that time. Whereas that one could. Stealing bombs to destroy a city, it could go on today.
Extort a country,
yes.
to bring it to its knees. Yes,
and
definitely.
that was interesting that the UK was gonna pay the ransom. If James Bond didn't save the day, they were gonna pay.
It was interesting how they wrote that, and it's a British-made film.
Mm-hmm.
This was also the first Bond movie in widescreen, and the first that was over 2 hours.
Okay, it's interesting because we were both, now that you've saying that, because we were both saying like, wow, this is really epic. The other ones didn't look as big on the screens because they had those black bars on the screen when you watch it on TV. Okay, I didn't realize that. But now it's making sense.
I mean, they wanted to go all out with this one. I mean, they already had the legacy to build on at this point. And
they did go all out. They spent a lot of money on everything. They even gave the stuntman, Bill Cummings, a bonus to jump in Largo's shark pool. So they were just throwing money. They weren't just say, "Hey, stuntman, just jump in there." He wants some extra dough for that.
Yeah. Those sharks. That part was scary. Showing the sharks in the pool and the blood and yeah.
And when you think about it too, because this is the time when 2 James Bond movies were shown in 1 year to U.S. audiences, because Goldfinger wasn't shown in the U.S. till January of '65, and this came out in December of '65.
Okay, well there was still some time in between, but
yeah.
But
there was a Bond movie.
That's very close
2 Bond
together.
movies came out in '65 if you lived in the United States. I mean, the closest thing that we have to that now is when they released, was it Solo and one
Rogue
of the Star
One,
Wars
or was
movies?
No, the
was it
The Last Jedi?
It might have been. Yeah,
like 6 months apart.
Yeah, there was a point where we were like, oh my god, this is just too close, too many Star Wars movies at once.
But usually it's unheard of these days.
Exactly.
I mean, like with James Bond, they wait 3 years or more. Like now, it's probably been 10 years.
Oh yeah. That now they stretch it out, but at the time they were in rapid fire, which I liked that for this. I liked the fact that they were just coming out with a lot of good quality. They were able to produce fantastic quality movies in a short period of time.
And that's the amazing thing, because usually when they're trying to be too fast, they mess it up.
Mm-hmm.
So this was amazing, and they were able to do the effects. They actually had the budget to do the movies that close together, which is another thing that's hard to believe. But because these movies were making so much money, they were able to do it.
Yeah. And the end scene. I love the end scene. James Bond gets the girl. They're floating away happily. And that was actually, that winch that was used was a real life method use of that the military uses. It's called sky hooking, where they pull up on someone from the water. I mean, you figure it's got to jerk you a bit.
Yeah, well, you see that in movies. I mean, I didn't know that like they really did that. I mean, but yeah, it's a movie thing. And it was a good scene. It was a great visual to watch and a very romantic ending for the movie.
Great one. We loved it.
Loved it.
Hello, StarPod Log listeners. This is Matt Sherman of BondFanEvents.com, continuing our in-depth look at the Ian Fleming novels and the great films of Bond. Today it's Thunderball. As in Operation Thunderball, the West is trying to avert a nuclear explosion, a Thunderball, and they're going to need James Bond and M to help them. Now, of course, as we've discussed recently, Thunderball, being an early Bond film, is very close to its original Ian Fleming novel, arguably the closest of all the films to the novels. And the other close ones, Dr. No from Russia with Love, Goldfinger on Her Majesty's Secret Service, and surprisingly, if you haven't read the Flemings, Casino Royale 2006. A lot of people love Casino Royale. They adore it. They place it as their top Bond film, or in their top 5 with Danny Craig as James Bond. And one reason is because a lot of the very coolest stuff in the film, the ideas, the concepts, the people, the action, comes straight from the Ian Fleming novels. And the main point of reading the Thunderball novel, other than just the sheer joy that I find reading and rereading the Flemings, his rich travel detail, the action, Bond's character as it evolves, is the story within the story. For example, in the novel, the villain's home is actually Ian Fleming's best friend's home. If you've seen the movie Thunderball, you remember the amazing Palmyra, Largo's home. It's set up for skeet shooting. It has henchmen as bodyguards. It's located on the water on the Bahamas, right on the Atlantic Ocean, and it has a shark pool. So it's a 3-2 with a shark pool. But in the novel, Largo rents his home, Palmyra, from an Englishman named Bryce. And readers will remember that Bond used the alias Bryce. Mr. and Mrs. Bryce were him and Solitaire as they fled Mr. Big out of New York in Live and Let Die. Why Bryce? Because Ian Fleming's best friend was Ivor Bryce, also a tall, dark, good-looking Englishman, and also successful. The ladies, Bryce married up, way up. He married a Hartford, Josephine Hartford, one of the 2 heirs to the A&P supermarket fortune. She was a billionaire in the 1950s. She was one of the richest people on earth. And the Bryces had a beautiful home in Nassau, the Bahamas, called Xanadu, where Ian Fleming often stayed with his wife Anne or alone without her. And when you read the description of Largo's home in the novel Thunderball, you get a matching description to the Bryce home Xanadu. So the villain's home that became the villain's home in the film was Ian Fleming's best friend's home. Now, how does Bond start his adventure in the novels? It's fascinating. He awakes to a hangover. The last night he drank 11 whiskeys. He's taking Fenzix for aspirin. He's taking caffeine, fruit salts with bicarbonate for his stomach. M calls him in, not on an exciting mission, but just to reprimand Bond for his recent medical report in which he consumes half a bottle of whiskey daily. M wants him cleansed of the typical British indulgences: white bread, sugar, pasteurized milk. And he reads to Bond, "Do you know what our bread contains, apart from a bit of overground flour? It contains large quantities of chalk, also benzoyl peroxide powder, chlorine gas, sal ammoniac, and alum." Bond quips that he doesn't eat much bread. A wonderful joke that's picked up in the film Never Say Never Again, that's based on the Thunderball film. But M insists Bond is missing good whole wheat, yogurt, nuts, raw fruits, and vegetables. M is on a health nut kick, recommends shrublands, a clinic that helped M's lumbago, his back pain, so that Bond will be grateful for his specialists in nature cures. An herb garden on the premises. Bond will eat or drink nothing but tea with brown sugar for weeks. Bond will have herbal enemas, massages, and saunas. And so Bond feels a lot better at shrublands. His energy is redoubled. But he slips up when he sees Count Lippy, gets suspicious, and as in the film, calls in his description, MI6, for a read. Count Lippy makes him, tortures Bond, Bond tortures Lippy. And the reason why Bond slipped up to make a call from a phone that was exposed is he's tired from fasting. Meanwhile, Miss Moneypenny has to console Bond's personal assistant over coffee in MI6's canteen. She says M eventually dropped his Shrubland's health kick because he had champagne following a stressful case. But Bond is really angering MI6 in May with his fastidious diet, including goat milk yogurt. And so Bond's assistant, May, Bond's housekeeper, she's Scottish, she says, "It's no right for a man to be eating bairns' food and slops and such like." Well, Bond lectures May about live versus dead food, calling white food dead. You know, refined flour, sugar, rice, salt, egg whites. Bond feels, Lord help those who eat fried food. No more binges for him, no more hangovers, no more raw eggs with Worcestershire hot sauce and pepper the next day. Meanwhile, M has to send Bond to the Bahamas on Operation Thunderball, and Lippy tries to kill Bond en route, just as in the movie. In the novel Savoring Life After the Attack, Bond tells May he can't work on carrot juice, so he orders what he considers a proper lunch. 4 scrambled eggs, 4 rashers of American hickory bacon, toast with butter, and he also grabs some double-brewed coffee and liquor. Now pay attention, 007. Ian Fleming once said a 4-egg meal makes a hero sensual to a reader's senses. That is, what made his book stand out was it wasn't getting up in the morning and having a couple of eggs and bacon. It was 4 eggs. It sounds like a real man's meal. In our imagination, a large cup of black coffee sits well on our taste buds. So the coffee eases Bond's throat. And if you want to ease your throat, take a look and see if you can find an old bottle of Thunderball. That's right, a tonic wine Thunderball used to be manufactured as, quote, a delicious pure wine enriched with malt extract, further fortified with vodka to produce a truly unique drinking experience. Well, considering all the alcohol in the book and in the film Thunderball for a tonic was a good product name choice. Well, Bond goes down to the Bahamas and we'll see a menu. When he's trying to seduce and win to his affection Domino to pump her for information, they go to the Café Martinique. He wins massive hands of chemin de fer, baccarat, against Largo. As in the novel, Bond says, "I thought I saw a spectre over your shoulder." And Largo is alarmed and he goes, "What do you mean?" And Bond says, "Oh, the spectre of defeat." So Bond has been confronting Largo, pushing at him. The Bond of the movie and the book Thunderball is a man of action. He doesn't want to sit passively and investigate. He wants to confront. So he takes as his reward Domino for a brief snack at Café Martinique. And interestingly, that's the sole James Bond menu whose items may be read on screen. I have in my home many props from the Bond films, and one of my happiest possessions is a menu from Casino Royale. Because the props department at Eon made bar menus, you can see 1 or 2 traveling on exhibit around the world with the Eon shows in different cities around the world. It's a rare item, and I have one. A magnificent bound volume with recipes in it for cocktails. But this menu was never even used on screen. Well, the large Café Martinique menu appears at Bond's side, and you can actually glance at it on screen and see what Bond was eating, because they went to a real-world cafe. And Huntington Hartford, the brother of Josephine Hartford, the owner of Xanadu, who I mentioned, with her husband Bryce, Fleming's best friend, Huntington Hartford owned the entire island where the Café Martinique scene was filmed in Thunderball. Yes, and he built the Ocean Club, the one and only Ocean Club from Casino Royale. Yes, and he got casino gambling made legal in the Bahamas. A very wealthy man. So his friends were extras in the Café Martinique scene. Ian even treated these wealthy people to a costume or cosplay contest for Best Dressed Extra. They fed them Dom Perignon, they fed them caviar, and Café Martinique is a real-world restaurant. And that's what's exciting about my tours. I want you to live Thunderball on tour with me, so when we tour the Bahamas, we at times go to the Café Martinique. The original facility was demolished and has been replaced in part by the Atlantis Marina, but Atlantis built a beautiful Café Martinique 2 on the property. So you can go and get a menu and eat as Bond ate and drink as Bond drank, which is very exciting. And to me, that's what it's all about. We keep these films alive in our memory. Keep these films alive and these books alive as we read them and watch them and talk about them and podcast about them with Star Podlog. And this is your chance, if you want to travel and see Bond's world, come along with me for the ride. And yes, there's a COVID-19 crisis on, but yes, we also have the largest fan cruise ever assembled. We have 40 fans, fully paid, to cruise in October of 2020. We're leaving from New Orleans. We're going to Key West and the Bahamas. We'll be in Nassau. And you better believe that the top spots are still on our list. Everyone wants to see Casino Royale and Thunderball locations and Spy Who Loved Me locations and journey through Ian Fleming's life and see from the Ian Fleming books. And we're going to do all of that and more. And as of the time that I'm recording this podcast for Star Podlog, our cruise is still on. The Carnival Cruise Line has made no final decisions about cancellations for October. And if they do, we will merely postpone the cruise, and then 40 and more of us will cruise at a later date. So if you want to see New Orleans locations from Live and Let Die, and you want to experience Bahamas locations from a dozen Bond books and films, because in the Bahamas they filmed For Your Eyes Only, and The World Is Not Enough, and Thunderball, and Casino Royale, and on and on and on. And you want to visit Key West and explore 30th anniversary locations from the book and the film License to Kill, and also sites from the James Bond novel Nobody Lives Forever, and drink and eat with Bond fans, and spend more than an entire week visiting Bond locations and talking about Bond, playing themed games aboard ship, hearing seminars, and so on and on and on. Come join us, and I have a special gift for every StarPodlog listener who joins our fan events. You can read about them on bondfanevents.com. We have events listed for between 2020 and the year 2022, including an anniversary trip to Jamaica, an Italy trip, and many other exciting events. Please sign up. We want to know that you're enjoying Star Podlog. Let me know that you've come to us through the Star Podlog channel, through their podcast and their wonderful outreach, and we'll give everyone who listens a special gift for coming along on our tours, and we will have a great time. And if you want to have a great time in the meantime while you're waiting for these events, read an Ian Fleming novel. You can start with Thunderball. You don't have to read the Bond novels in order. You can. I didn't know when I was a kid that Casino Royale was the first Bond novel. But Thunderball is one of the great ones, and it's a nice introduction if you're a Bond movie lover because you already know the plot and you'll be able to follow along very well. And you'll see the difference is delightful. And you'll see that it's a myth that all the Fleming material has been used for the Bond films. They haven't used hundreds of things from the Fleming novels, little and large. As a matter of fact, no spoilers, but the rumors are that certain Fleming things will be in No Time to Die, the upcoming James Bond film, and I guarantee those will be the most controversial and probably the most interesting parts of the film. So thanks again for listening, Star Podlog listeners. It's bondfanevents.com. My name is Matt Sherman. Everyone calls me M, and I look forward to helping you complete more missions soon.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and join our Facebook group. Live long, and may the Force be with you. Nanu Nanu.